There is a Hebrew word the Bible uses to describe how God feels toward humanity. Not how God thinks or decides, but how God truly feels. This word, appearing 44 times in prophetic writings and psalms, is translated as mercy, a Latin word cold, judicial, like a judge granting clemency. The Hebrew word is Rachamim, Rachamim. Its root has nothing judicial. The root is rechem, meaning womb. The word God uses for his feelings has the same root as the organ that formed you before you existed. This is no coincidence, but a deliberate theological statement. Prophets repeated it for centuries, yet Western tradition lacked courage to translate it honestly. Beyond that, honesty lies a portrait of God most people, even lifelong churchgoers, have never truly encountered. Biblical Hebrew has an extraordinary economy of language. Rarely do two different words describe the same reality. When rechem, womb, builds Rachamim, God's love for Israel, it's not accident, it is a deliberate choice. Biblical writers knew other words for love: ahava, for covenantal love; chesed, for committed loyalty. To describe the most visceral, involuntary, biologically rooted divine love, they found the word in the womb. Rachamim is love not based on decision. A mother doesn't decide to love the child she carried for 9 months. This love exists before choice, formed with the child's body, present before its first breath. It's the most tenacious love in human experience. This pre-rational, pre-decisional, inseparable love describes God's relation to humanity. The plural form Rachamim is significant. In Hebrew, plural abstract concepts indicate intensity, not multiplicity. Chayim, life, and shamayim, heavens, are plural. Rachamim in plural means uterine love in its fullest, most intense, unrestricted form. The language is working at the limit of what can be said. Isaiah 49:15. The prophet writes for Israel in exile, a people who lost their temple, land, and any visible sign of God's presence. The question was not abstract, but concrete. Has God forgotten me? God's answer in Isaiah 49:15 uses rechem directly. Can a woman forget her nursing child, that she should have no Rachamim for the son of her rechem? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. Two movements. God invokes the most powerful image of unconditional love. Then God surpasses that image. Even if the impossible happened, even if a mother forgot her child, I will not forget you. Take the most tenacious love you can imagine. Now multiply it. What remains is an imperfect approximation of divine Rachamim. Isaiah 49:16, the very next verse, adds, "Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." The image is of a tattoo, permanent, indelible. The name of God's people carved into the palms of divine hands. In Jewish tradition, rabbis read this as justification for mourning over destroyed Jerusalem. God carries the wound of exile inscribed on his body. Hosea 11 is one of the most disturbing texts, not because it is dark, but because it is too intimate. God speaks in the first person about Israel, the way a parent would speak of a child who abandoned them after a lifetime of care. Verses 1 through 4. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. The more they were called, the more they went away from me. Yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk. I took them up by their arms. I bent down to them and fed them. Then in verse 8, after describing inevitable judgment, something happens. How can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I hand you over, O Israel? My heart recoils within me. My Rachamim grow warm and tender. The Hebrew verb for recoils, nepak, is the same word used to describe milk curdling in a baby's stomach. It is a physical, visceral, almost nauseating image. The stomach convulsing from the inside. God is describing a bodily reaction, not a reconsidered decision, a convulsion of the entrails. The theologian Abraham Heschel called this divine pathos. The idea that God is genuinely affected by human choices, that suffering and rebellion produce something real in the Creator. Hosea 11:9, the conclusion. I will not execute my burning anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am God and not a man, the Holy One in your midst. The logic is inverted from everything popular theology expects. Not, I will forgive because I have decided to be merciful, but I will not destroy because I am God and not a man. The difference is not that God is more powerful or wiser. It is that God has Rachamim of a quality that no human being can sustain completely. The book of Jonah is usually reduced to the story of the large fish, but the fish occupies only 3 verses. The central theme is an argument between Jonah and God about Rachamim, and Jonah loses the argument. Jonah 4:2. Jonah is furious because God spared Nineveh. He explains his anger with a revealing sentence, I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, Rachem Varanan, slow to anger and abounding in Rachamim and relenting from disaster. Jonah knew exactly who God was. He knew God would have Rachamim on the Ninevites. That's precisely why he fled. God responds with the plant. He makes a plant grow over Jonah to give him shade, and Jonah is satisfied. Then God sends a worm that kills the plant, and Jonah becomes so angry about the plant's death that he says he would rather die. And then God asks the question that closes the book. You pity the plant, for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left? The book ends with Jonah's unanswered question. The reader is left with the question, can you have Rachamim only for your own people? Or does Rachamim, by definition as uterine love, recognize no boundaries? Jonah cannot answer. The text does not let him, because the correct answer requires a conversion that is not merely moral, it is ontological. The New Testament does not use Rachamim, it is in Greek, but it uses a verb that is the exact equivalent, built on the same physical image, Splanchnizomai. From the noun splanchna, entrails, viscera, the internal organs. When the New Testament says Jesus had compassion, the verb is Splanchnizomai. Jesus felt compassion in his gut, not in his mind, not in his will, in his viscera. Matthew 9:36. Jesus sees the crowd and Splanchnizomai. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Luke 7:13. The widow of Nain carrying her dead son to the tomb. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her. Splanchnizomai. Luke 15:20. The father of the prodigal son, seeing his son returning from afar, while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, Splanchnizomai, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. The father of the prodigal did not wait for the son to reach the gate. He ran. The image is deliberate. An older man running was considered undignified. The entrails were already in motion before the decision was made. John 11:35, the shortest verse in the entire Bible, Jesus wept. The context is the tomb of Lazarus. Jesus knew he was going to raise Lazarus. But when he saw Mary weeping and the Jews weeping with her, the text says, Jesus embrimaomai, groaned in his spirit, was deeply troubled, and then wept. Not because there was no hope, but because Rachamim does not stand outside suffering waiting for it to end. It enters, it weeps alongside, and then it acts. There is a silent crisis in many churches that is never named precisely. It is not the crisis of doctrine, it is the crisis of the God people actually carry, the God most people hold after years of Western religious formation. A God who tolerates, who yields, who weighs merit on a scale and decides, by some combination of grace and performance, not to destroy you this time. That God does not have Rachamim, he has a forgiveness policy, and the difference is the distance between a judge who signs your acquittal and a mother who cannot sleep while you have a fever. One makes a favorable decision. The other cannot stop feeling. The theologian Jürgen Moltmann argues that the crucifixion only makes theological sense if God is capable of suffering. If there is something in God that is genuinely affected by human suffering, that does not stand outside looking in. Moltmann called it the passion of God. Arne Heschel called it divine pathos. The Hebrew Bible calls it Rachamim. Three ways of naming the same refusal. The refusal of a God who feels the way a womb feels, incapable of being indifferent to what it formed. How does this touch your life today? If the God you know is primarily a God who evaluates, who watches your choices, weighs your performance, decides whether you merit being embraced this season, then the word Rachamim has something specific to offer. Rachamim is not activated by your merit. It does not wait for you to improve. It is not conditioned on repentance, on church attendance, on the quality of your prayer life. Rachamim is the love that exists because you exist, because you were formed, because you were carried, because between you and God there is the kind of bond that exists between the womb and what the womb formed. You did nothing to create that bond. It existed before you drew breath. Isaiah 66:13, as one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you. Not as a king who rewards, not as a judge who acquits, as a mother who comforts. The image is entirely physical. The voice, the touch, the smell, the presence a child recognizes before they even understand what recognition is. Psalm 131 ends with an image that uses the vocabulary of Rachamim without pronouncing the word, but I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. The weaned child is not nursing, it is not receiving something, it is simply with the mother. The presence is sufficient, the contact is sufficient. Not because the child earned anything, but because the bond exists. This video has established the Hebrew word Rachamim, translated as mercy, comes from the root rechem, womb. It appears 44 times in the prophetic writings. It is used explicitly by Isaiah, Hosea, and Jonah to describe the most visceral and involuntary quality of divine love. A love that does not pass through decision because it is inscribed before any decision. The New Testament preserves the Greek equivalent, Splanchnizomai, to feel in the entrails, as the most frequent verb for what Jesus feels when he encounters human suffering. Jesus weeps at Lazarus's tomb, even knowing he is about to raise him. Not because there was uncertainty, but because Rachamim does not stand outside suffering. It enters, it weeps alongside, and then it acts. The translation, mercy, is not wrong. It is too small, too cold, too judicial for a concept that the Hebrew Bible built on the organ that forms life. If God's love for you has the structure of uterine love, involuntary, predecisional, biologically inseparable from its object, then the question is not whether you deserve that love. The question is whether you can stop long enough to receive it. If this reached somewhere that needed reaching, share it with someone who is carrying a picture of God that is too small for the pain they are in. Subscribe, because next week we go to another word, another root, another place where the ancient language says something the translation was too cautious to carry.